It begins with laughter, the careless, unguarded kind that spills from mouths too certain of their safety. A joke slides into the room like smoke, curling between their words, dissipating into the air as if it were nothing. They laugh because they believe it is harmless, because they trust in the illusion that humor is weightless. But you do not laugh. You watch. You listen. You feel the tremor beneath the sound, the hidden fracture in the wall they think is impenetrable. While they toss it aside as a passing amusement, you cradle it in silence because you know that every joke is a confession wrapped in camouflage, every laugh a mask that trembles under pressure. They laugh to forget. You listen to remember. And in that moment, you feel the divide widen between you and them. They live in the surface world, where words are dismissed as fleeting, where thoughts are discarded the moment they taste of discomfort. But you have never belonged to that world. You walk the undercurrent, where shadows cling to language and meanings bleed beneath the skin of speech. To you, a joke is not a punchline, it is a blueprint, a discarded key, a whisper that trembles with truth even when the speaker refuses to acknowledge it. They believe they are mocking you with their cleverness. What they don't see is that their own tongues have betrayed them, leaking maps of their fears and longings while they laugh to distract themselves from the exposure. The air shifts as you absorb the words no one else heard. The laughter fades, but in your chest, the silence grows heavier. You feel the weight of it pressing inward, the revelation that what they treat as entertainment is in fact strategy disguised as absurdity. You know this because you have learned to survive in the cracks between ridicule and reverence. You've watched how empires fall, not from grand betrayals, but from the small truths overlooked, hidden in plain sight, delivered as jokes at banquets just before the blood spills. The ancients called it the trickster's tongue, the serpent's coil around innocence. To the untrained, it is comedy. To the awakened, it is prophecy. And while their bodies shake with laughter, you remain still, a quiet figure at the edge of their chaos. Inside, you are already constructing, threading meaning from fragments, weaving the discarded words into a silent architecture of power. They do not see your hands working in the dark. They cannot, because their eyes are blinded by the illusion of harmlessness. They think a joke dies in the moment it is spoken. But you know better. Jokes do not die. They evolve. They linger in the bloodstream of thought, infecting the future with possibilities no one else dares to touch. This is why you don't laugh. This is why you don't forget. Because somewhere inside you, the truth has always burned. Nothing is accidental, not even the sound of laughter, especially not the sound of laughter. It is in their careless mirth that you find your sharpest weapons. And tonight, in this room, among these voices, you recognize it again. The moment when their comfort becomes your opportunity, when what they discard becomes what you forge. And though they may never know it, the balance has already shifted, all because of a joke that should never have mattered. The laughter dies, but it does not die inside you. It lingers like smoke after fire, curling in the air, staining the silence. They think the moment has passed, a fleeting burst of humor swallowed by the room, but you know better. You feel it echoing in your chest, reverberating like a warning bell. What they tossed aside as nonsense settles in your mind as if carved into stone. It is here, in this hush that follows, where truth hides itself, disguised, fragile, waiting for eyes willing to see. You remain still, unmoving, letting the silence stretch. The others chatter, their voices light, their gestures careless, but you listen to what exists between their words. Doubt, insecurity, the need to conceal weakness under the mask of laughter. You hear it all, even if they don't, and in that moment you realize the silence is not emptiness. Silence is the purest signal. When the noise fades, the architecture of truth emerges, and you are the only one patient enough to hear it. The joke was their shield, a distraction, a spark they threw into the crowd to see who would notice. They didn't expect you to. They didn't expect anyone to, but you did. You saw the outline of a confession hidden in their grin, the trembling shadow behind their eyes. Every careless remark is a fracture in the mask, every chuckle a seam waiting to be pried open. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. You find yourself replaying the sound, dissecting the rhythm, hunting for what it betrayed. The silence grows heavier now, They no longer notice you. You have become part of the background, a ghost in the room, a shadow that listens. This is your advantage while they waste energy maintaining their illusions. You collect the fragments of what they try to hide. They believe they still hold the stage, but the stage has already shifted beneath their feet. You feel it. The air thickens, the balance tips. What was once a harmless jest has transformed into leverage, soft in their hands, sharp in yours. You remember how ancient strategists described silence not as weakness, but as the moment the arrow is drawn back, the breath held, the strike prepared. This is what you're experiencing now, the pull of tension before release, the secret awareness that you have stumbled upon something alive, a tool disguised as laughter, a truth waiting to be weaponized. They are blind to it, yet it vibrates in your skull with clarity, demanding to be shaped, demanding to be used. And in that instant, something inside you hardens. You see them differently, no longer untouchable, no longer beyond reach. Their arrogance blinds them, their laughter betrays them. They cannot see the danger in the silence, but you can. You realize you don't need to interrupt, you don't need to speak at all. You only need to listen. Because listening is the sharpest form of power, the quiet act of turning their noise into your strategy. What they believe has ended has only just begun. The joke is forgotten by everyone except you. And in that sacred quiet, you know the game has shifted forever. They laughed because they thought it was nothing. A slip of the tongue, a careless jest tossed into the air like smoke that dissolves before it can be noticed. But you didn't let it dissolve. You caught it, held it, turned it over in your mind as though it were a shard of broken glass glinting beneath the dirt. To them, it was absurd, a punchline without weight. To you, it was a fragment of code, clumsy, unguarded, and dangerous in its honesty. You replay it quietly again and again while they move on blind, their laughter still echoing like an old recording in an empty hallway. The words are no longer words, they are patterns, shapes, a confession disguised as comedy. You trace their edges as though you were an archaeologist uncovering forbidden inscriptions, a cracked tablet, a lost scripture, a hidden map concealed under the dust of centuries. They may have forgotten what they said, but you haven't. You refuse to, because you know every joke is a mask, every laugh is camouflage. The psyche reveals itself in accidents, in slips, and the sentences thrown away. And once you've heard it, truly heard it, you cannot unhear. The ordinary transforms into signal. It burns in you, this revelation. What they mocked, you reframe. Where they saw absurdity, you see blueprint. Their words rearrange themselves into architecture, columns of cause and effect, beams of motive and intention. A structure they did not even realize they were building with their own tongues. And now it stands before you, invisible to them, undeniable to you. A doorway they mocked into existence, and one you alone can step through. You begin sketching in silence, not on paper, but in thought and instinct, in sharpened awareness. The joke becomes strategy, a design written in negative space. What they dismiss as chaos, you reconstruct into order. Their laughter was their betrayal, their arrogance, their weakness. They believed they were safe behind the curtain of humor, but they handed you the keys while thinking they were dangling nonsense. You hold those keys now, cool and heavy in your palm, and the door they fear does not yet exist, but you are building it. The irony is exquisite. The very words they intended to discard become the foundation of their undoing. They gave you their unguarded mind, and you recorded it without lifting a pen. They armed you without realizing it. The smallest phrase, treated as nothing, becomes your ammunition. And what began as an echo in the air hardens into a weapon, precise and deliberate. Their carelessness becomes your discipline. Their levity becomes your gravity. Their joke becomes your prophecy. And as you stand there, silent, watching them sink into the comfort of their laughter, you already see the fractures forming. They believe they control the room, but you see the scaffolding shaking. You feel the weight of inevitability pressing against their ignorance. They will not see it until it is too late. The structure is already alive inside you, pulsing, breathing, demanding to be built. What they abandoned, you have resurrected. What they mocked, you have sanctified. In your mind, the joke is no longer a joke. It is a disguised design, an unguarded scripture, a shadowed truth now burning like a beacon. And with an ancient certainty that feels older than yourself, that their laughter was never the end. It was the beginning. You move without announcing yourself. That's the first principle. While others drown in their own noise, you step into the quiet corridors where decisions are not spoken but carved. The joke still lingers in the air like smoke from a fire they forgot to put out, but you're the one who collects the embers. What they dismissed, you refine. What they abandoned, you cultivate. Their laughter was the distraction, your silence is the weapon. Every movement feels almost ritualistic, measured, deliberate, unseen. The small steps are the most dangerous because they don't notice them until it's far too late. A whispered phrase redirected, a glance held just 1 second too long, a detail shifted that no one else bothers to question. To them, nothing has changed. To you, everything has. You breathe life into the fragments they mocked, shaping them into a structure with edges sharper than they can comprehend. The first moves are always subtle, designed to blend into shadows, to grow beneath their awareness like roots splitting the foundation beneath their feet. In their world, strategy must announce itself loudly. Grand plans, bold declarations, the theater of confidence. In your world, strategy is silence. You step lightly, yet every step is irreversible, every move binding. They still think they're laughing at a joke, unaware that they have already been drafted into a script they never wrote. And worse, they never realized you were holding the pen. They gave you the raw material and mocked its weight. You took their carelessness and hammered it into steel. There's something ancient in this act, as though you've tapped into a forgotten order of survival. The hunter who moves when the forest is still. The prophet who speaks in symbols while the crowd chants empty words. You recognize the ritual of transformation, the discarded becoming sacred, the hidden becoming inevitable. You can feel it tightening around them, though they have no sense of it yet. Their arrogance blinds them to the fact that their own words are being reshaped into their undoing. At night, when the noise has died and their laughter no longer echoes, you feel the gravity of the shift. You've already taken the first corner, already placed the first stone. It feels dangerous, intoxicating, but above all, inevitable. This is what power tastes like before anyone else realizes it has entered the room. You're not announcing it. You're not demanding recognition. You're breathing it, living it, letting it seep into the unseen spaces they'll never inspect until it's too late. You watch them walk confidently, believing themselves untouchable. They smile, they jest, they boast, never noticing that their path has narrowed, their choices reduced, their laughter hollowed out. They think they are leading, but the ground they walk on is the one you've rearranged beneath their feet. Each subtle shift builds momentum. Each overlooked action prepares the stage for collapse. The first moves in the dark are not about victory. They are about inevitability, about ensuring that by the time the lights return, the game is no longer theirs. It has already become yours. At first, they didn't notice. The air still carried the faint residue of laughter, that false confidence that clung to their words like perfume too long worn. But beneath it, something shifted. A silence grew, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses against the walls of the mind, the kind that forces a man to listen to things he doesn't want to hear. They sensed it without admitting it. The balance had tilted. What was once dismissed as harmless now lingered like a shadow at the edge of their vision. You could see it in their eyes. The tremor they tried to hide, the nervous pause before they spoke again. The joke they had once wielded so carelessly had come alive, and its reflection was staring back at them. They began to question themselves. Was it just a coincidence? Or had their words been more revealing than they dared to admit? Doubt spreads quickly, like a contagion passed through every whisper, every exchanged glance. Where laughter once bound them together, suspicion now divides. They start second, guessing each other, wondering who else noticed, who else might be turning their laughter into leverage. You watch from the shadows, silent while their certainty fractures. Every man becomes a stranger, every ally a potential betrayer, and the irony is exquisite. The storm that consumes them was seeded by their own careless tongues. There is a moment when panic does not roar but whispers. That moment has arrived. You see them hesitate before speaking, fearing their own words might turn against them again, Fear is not loud, it is quiet, corrosive, eating away at the foundations of their false security. Their arrogance has been punctured, and in its place grows the terror of being outmaneuvered by something invisible, something they cannot measure, something that now lives inside their imagination. And this is where your power begins to crystallize. Not in what you say, but in what you don't. Not in what you do, but in what they believe you are capable of doing. They laugh less now. Their conversations taper off into unfinished sentences. Their voices carry the weight of restraint, the suffocating knowledge that they've lost control of the narrative. They sense that somewhere, beyond their reach, the joke they once dismissed has become a living strategy, and they cannot stop it. They can only wait, trapped in their own anticipation. You watch them unravel, and it is almost ritualistic, almost sacred. Like an ancient trial where prideful kings are brought to their knees, not by armies or swords, but by the echo of their own mistakes. What you hold is not just knowledge, it is leverage. They gave it freely, clothed in humor, thinking it's safe. But words are never safe. Words are weapons, and once released, they cannot be retrieved. Now they look over their shoulders, wondering who holds the blade. Their silence betrays them. Their glances betray them. Even their forced smiles betray them. And you stand apart, untouched, knowing that the most devastating fear is not fear of what has happened, but fear of what is still to come. They never saw you coming. For so long you were the shadow on the wall, the quiet observer in a room that never noticed your silence. They mistook your restraint for weakness, your patience for emptiness. They laughed while you studied. They spoke carelessly while you carved their words into stone. And now the same voices that once drowned you out have gone still, replaced with whispers that tremble under the weight of their own fear. You reclaimed power not by force, but by absence, by refusing to play the game the way they expected. In every room, there is light and there is darkness. They reached for the light, hungry for attention, desperate to be seen. You stayed in the dark, and in that stillness you learned. You saw the patterns in their arrogance, the cracks in their laughter. What they called jokes you recognized as confessions. What they discarded you refined into weapons. Power was never given to you. It was assembled piece by piece from fragments too small for their blinded eyes to notice. Now the balance has shifted. Their laughter has been replaced with tension that hums in the air like static before a storm. They do not know what move you will make next, and that is the terror. You have become unpredictable, and unpredictability is the highest form of control. They once thought you were powerless because you did not fight, but you learned that silence is not surrender, it is strategy. The longer you waited, the sharper your edge became, until even the faintest gesture of your hand feels like a command. They wonder how it happened, how the one they overlooked, dismissed, and mocked has become the one they now watch with unease. The truth is simple, yet they will never admit it. They handed you their power willingly. Every careless word they spoke, every secret they revealed in laughter, every time they underestimated you, they were building the throne you now sit upon. Their betrayal was not against you, but against themselves. They betrayed their own strength by casting it away, never realizing someone was watching, gathering, remembering. Your presence has changed. The air bends differently around you. They feel it when you enter the room, the silence that follows, the hesitation in their speech, the weight of their sudden caution. Once you were invisible. Now, invisibility has become your crown. The shadow is no longer absence, it is dominion. You are both unseen and undeniable. The paradox terrifies them because they cannot defend against what they cannot grasp, and deep inside you feel it too. The transformation is not loud. It does not announce itself with trumpets or fire. It arrives like an eclipse, slow and inevitable, swallowing the light until the world is forced to recognize the darkness. You no longer chase recognition. You let them panic in their own silence, because true power does not roar. It watches, it waits, and when it moves, it does so with the weight of inevitability. You were once dismissed as nothing. Now nothing has become everything. They used to laugh without hesitation. Their voices rolled across the room like thunder that believed itself eternal. But now the thunder has fractured into a brittle silence. Their eyes betray them before their mouths do. darting, restless, haunted by the shadow of something they cannot name but cannot escape. You watch as their confidence collapses inward, a structure built on arrogance and denial finally caving under its own weight. They don't understand how it happened. They don't understand how the very words they once mocked have grown teeth. But you do, because you've been waiting for this moment, not with rage, not with fire, but with the cold patience of someone who already knew how the story would end. The air itself feels different now, heavy, tense, threaded with suspicion. They whisper in corners, as if silence could protect them from the truth pressing against their throats. Their laughter, once careless, once deafening, is gone, replaced by the shuffling of feet, the sharpness of swallowed breaths, the rustle of panic spreading like smoke. And in that shift, you feel the balance of power tilt entirely into your hands. You did not beg for it. You did not demand it. It was surrendered to you, piece by piece, the way a fortress abandons its walls when the enemy is already inside. There is betrayal etched into their faces. Betrayal not by you, but by themselves. They realize now that the joke they weaponized was never harmless. It was a cipher, a confession, a message written in symbols they didn't care to read. You read it, you carved it into your skin until it bled meaning. And with every move, with every shadow-born step, you made their carelessness your blade. They look at you differently now, not with amusement, not with dismissal, but with the unspoken recognition that you saw what they refused to see. And that knowledge has already rewritten the game. They are panicking because they can feel the walls close in, though they cannot point to the hands tightening them. They speak more quickly, then stop speaking altogether. They huddle in false alliances, eyes sharp, words blunt, all while pretending nothing has changed. But everything has changed. You can feel the tremor in their voices, the fracture in their rhythm, the collapse of their composure. Their certainty has become a battlefield littered with broken assurances, and every step they take is another crack in the ground beneath them. You do not move with haste. You do not need to. The storm is already inside them, tearing through their minds. They know you are the source, even if they cannot prove it. That uncertainty is your crown. You have taken their strongest weapon, mockery, and forged it into silence. Silence so loud it suffocates them. Silence that bends their spines and forces them to glance over shoulders, searching for threats that are already within their skin. And as you stand in the center of their unraveling, you understand what they cannot admit. Panic is not the sound of defeat. It is the sound of recognition. The recognition that what they thought was a harmless laugh was the first domino, and that every step since has been your design. They are not laughing anymore. They are counting down, even if they don't know to what. And you, patient, unshaken, are the only one who has already heard the final number. You were never meant to hear this truth spoken aloud. It was always hidden between the pauses of laughter, buried in the throwaway lines people used to mask their trembling hearts. They told you the joke was harmless, that nothing survives once the echo fades. But you saw it differently. You felt the pulse beneath the silence, the forbidden rhythm that revealed itself only to eyes sharpened by exclusion. While they mocked, you memorized. While they forgot, you built. And now, standing here, you realize the lesson they were too afraid to learn. What others discard becomes the stone you carve into a blade. They laugh because laughter blinds. It shields them from the unbearable weight of meaning. But you never looked away. You let the words seep into you like ink bleeding through old parchment, staining you with truths that cannot be washed off. They thought power was loud, visible, celebrated in the open. You know better. Power is born in whispers, in hidden files tucked away in shadows, in the details overlooked by a world addicted to spectacle. Their arrogance was your tutor, their dismissal your inheritance. And when they panicked, when they finally saw the shape of your strategy rising like a phantom from their own ridicule, you understood that silence is not weakness, it is incubation. Before, you were the one dismissed, the one set aside, the one who sat in the corners of rooms, watching with eyes they never feared. Now, you are the tremor in their chests, the unexplainable weight in the air when you enter. The same laughter they once used as a weapon has turned against them, echoing like a curse in their memories. You made them realize the most dangerous person in any room is not the one speaking, not the one laughing, but the one listening with intent. They never prepared for you. They never prepared for the shadow that could turn their carelessness into a crown. Think of ancient symbols etched into stone, serpents, spirals, eyes carved into walls long before their meaning was forgotten. Those who carved them knew the same truth. Now survival belongs to the one who sees beyond appearances. To them, a circle was just a circle. To you, it was eternity. To them, the joke was just a joke. To you, it was a map. And while they scrambled, desperate to erase the lines, you were already 10 steps ahead, following paths they swore did not exist. This is the forbidden lesson. The truth no teacher will admit, no system will confess, no leader will hand you. Power is not created out of thin air. It is harvested from the blind spots of others. Every overlooked word, every mocking dismissal, every careless detail they discard in arrogance. These are the raw materials of your ascendancy. They will hate you for knowing this. They will call you manipulative, dangerous, ruthless. And still, when the smoke clears and the panic burns through their lungs, they will remember one thing: you turned their laughter into silence. You transformed what they feared least into what they fear most. And you will carry this lesson forever, etched into your very marrow, as both a warning and a weapon.